Good afternoon, everybody. It is so good to have everyone here for this piano reading session and whatnot. And we're very fortunate to have Lloyd with us. And Karen and I really worked and dug around and feel like we found some great music to share with you all. So, and of course, Lloyd earned his BA from Anderson University in Indiana and his Master's in Church Music from Southern Baptist Seminary in Louisville. He has done additional graduate work at Southern Baptist Seminary, the Ohio State University, Northern Baptist Seminary in Chicago, Illinois. Since 1982, Lloyd has been an active composer, arranger for several major publishing companies of church and school music. His compositions and arrangement include well over 1,500 published works, including choral anthems, numerous extended Christmas and Easter and non-seasonal works, keyboard collections, vocal solos, duet collections, instrumental works, and handbell. The resulting notoriety has placed him in constant demand as a clinician throughout North America. It's Lloyd's work in his local church that continues to be a catalyst for much of his writing, where he's actively involved in various roles. And then once again, we're just so glad to have you all with us and have Lloyd with us. And we will, with that, let's start the class.
Well, thank you. Stanton keeps you hopping on a day like today. This morning we did a 3.5-hour choral session that some of you were at. And so you ate a quick lunch, as did I, between the trip from the northern part of the city down to be here. But nobody does a keyboard session like Stanton's. I've done these off and on over the years. And, usually it's a group of 5, 6. On a good day, you might have 8, 9, 10, but not a room full of people. And so it's always an honor and a little intimidating, to walk into a setting, because we're looking at 17 books today with basically 2 pieces out of every book. So if you came expecting them to be played perfectly, you might as well leave now, because what I will do is try to give you an idea of what they could sound like, but allowing you to take them and shape them and finesse them and refine them and make them a part of your repertoire if you decide it's a suitable addition. And I hope that you will find some resources in here that are. How many of you are primarily pianists? How many of you are primarily organists? And how many of you wear both of those hats? Yeah. So some of you are pianists who simply got pulled over and you're kind of learning how to do organ as well. That's kind of like, I have, in fact, I understand, I haven't looked on the table, but somebody said a couple of your organ books are out there.
Yes.
And actually, well, let me explain it and I'll answer your question. I was a church music major in the 70s. And what was required of the church music majors, even if you were a piano major, was to take a year of organ. And I decided after a year of organ, my feet worked a whole lot better on a baseball field or a basketball court than they did on that pedal board. It was an overwhelming and less than an awe-inspiring experience for me. But I happened to marry an organist who's here with me today turning my pages. And that was the best decision I ever made when it came to organ playing. But because I married an organist, I have been able to kind of bounce my organ things past her, and she can say, yeah, that works, that doesn't work, that's too pianistic, it doesn't feel like organ. So to answer your question, I actually do have a new organ book coming out. It'll be out, it'll probably be in print in November, December, but it's a Linton project. So for what that's worth, I don't go back and play them because that's not what I do. But if they are useful to you all, I'm happy to hear that. That's encouraging. Well, anyhow, it's a pleasure to be here. My wife and I lived in this community almost 14 years, early 80s to 1994. And so we have a lot of fond memories, some good friends who still live in the area. Our 3 children were born in Riverside Methodist Hospital. So we have a lot of reasons to come back and to be able to enjoy some time here. So anyhow, thank you for your warm welcome and for the opportunity all-state event. Service starters, and I understand you have this flyer, so I'm going to try and give you a little bit of information that's not on the flyer. So you're only going to get to see like the first page. Is that basically what it is? First page of these. So I'll, at least we definitely will do first page and probably beyond that. But service starters, let me tell you a little bit about that. I've served in small churches and large churches where organ was the dominant instrument, and in more recent years, we've been in a smaller church setting, which worked well for me in my writing, which was my day job. And so piano was the lead instrument, the primary instrument. And there were a lot of things in the beginning of the worship service that I wound up leading or creating to use to help us launch our service. And that's what really started and prompted this particular book. So in this book, you will find piano and narration, typically scriptural narration by one, sometimes two readers. Some of them have an optional solo instrument. Some of them have a vocal solo on occasion, but they all eventually segue into the chorale setting of the hymns that are in here, and they're basically the same harmonizations that you will find in your hymnal and my hymnal. It's just the piano part is a realized piano part. If you are an improviser, it's how you would improvise looking at your hymnal and still maintaining the choral harmonizations, the chorale harmonizations that are in the hymnal, so your congregations can still sing the parts that are printed there. Then it goes into an interlude, and most times a key change with a free harmonization where you encourage the choir to go to the last stanza and sing it in unison. So that's what this collection is. And we're going to demonstrate it, and you're going to be the congregation today. And Chris is going to be our narrator. He's going to open this, and this particular one, we don't have it today with us, but has optional solo instrument. And the instruments, when you have them, are optional. So if it's a B-flat instrument, there's one or two in here that will go with a B-flat instrument. But again, the piano part is written in such a way that it will cover for that instrument if you don't have it. The solo C instrument, violin, would be my recommendation on this opening one. But I'm going to do it as if we don't have a violin, because we don't. And then we will cue you at the right time, and you've got words that are going to show up on the screens up here. And basically, we're going to do, for the sake of time, we're going to do the first stanza and the last stanza of Be Thou My Vision. Okay? Everybody clear? So there are going to be a couple of times today where you're going to get to sing with us and be a part of the event and experience. Okay, so this is Be Thou My Vision.
Where there is no vision, the people perish. But blessed are those who keep the law. Let us then fix our eyes on Jesus, the author and perfecter of our faith, who for the joy set before him endured the cross, scorning its shame, and now sits at the right hand of the throne of God.
This becomes the hymn intro. Every one of them has a hymn intro. different. They all have kind of their own personality. And I think your sheet has the listing of the hymns included, does it not? Okay, so you can see what's included in that particular book. So that's service starters. Just wanted to kind of give you an idea of what that might look like. The Everlasting Song. This is Mary McDonald. How many of you have been here when Mary's been here? I told the group this morning, usually they have me come in the year after Mary has been here to restore sanity. Mary's a great friend and a fabulous musician, composer, pianist. She's going to be here next year, is what I heard just this morning. So if you're a Mary fan, come back and support her so that she knows that she's got some fans somewhere anyhow. Mary, we're going to see at least a couple of her books today. And this is the Everlasting Song. We're going to look at a couple of settings in here. All Hail the Power, and This Is My Father's World. How do you describe Mary's piano writings? I describe them this way. I told the choir, the singers in the choral session this morning, I think Mary sometimes gets paid by the note. So the more notes, the better. But her settings, whether you're talking about choral or piano, they're inspiring, they have lots of color, lots of richness to them, rich harmonies, they're always creative, they're always fresh, and she does it well. So let's look at a couple of these. All Hail the Power of Jesus' Name. By the way, one of the reasons I needed a page turner today is because these are not my books. These are Stanton's books, and they say, don't dog-ear them, don't mark them up, don't put, fingerings, don't put, circle the writs here and there, and that kind of thing. So I'm trying to keep these in pristine shape because they go back on. Some of you might buy them. So I've got a couple of post-it notes, but basically, with the page turner, with no dog ears and no notes, we'll see how this all works out. But I think it will. Okay, this is Mary's All. By the way, this is All Hail the Power. We oftentimes sing Coronation hymn tune or the Diadem. This is the Diadem hymn tune. different interpretations of the various verses, little text painting which happens here and there. Let's look at a little bit of This Is My Father's World. Kind of give you different, most of these books will give you a little bit of a contrast, something a little more bold and something a little more contemplative in nature. And this is a more contemplative, tender setting of This Is My Father's World. Harmonically, her sonorities are just rich and really satisfying and all of that. We found a new composer this year that we're really excited about. His name is Hayes. I'd be really surprised if there wasn't everybody in this room that doesn't have a Mark Hayes book or several in their library. How many of you remember this Alleluia that came out from the Gaithers 51 years ago? I was in college at Anderson, and if you know anything about the Gaithers, they're just up the road in Alexandria, which is basically a wide spot in the road in Indiana. And the Fredbach Music Company, which now has the Alleluia books, the collections in their catalog, went to Mark and asked Mark if he would, on the 50th anniversary, which was actually this past year of the original Alleluia choral musical, do a collection of piano arrangements based on that musical. I don't think there'd ever been anything like that done, and so Mark did that, and we'll do a couple from here. But one of the things you'll find from Mark's writing, obviously they always fit well under the hands, but he has maintained in these arrangements most of the original harmonizations. So Ron Huff, who was the orchestrator on that particular project 50 years ago, the late Ron Huff, came up with these colorful and rich harmonizations and orchestrations. And Mark went back in his arranging and grabbed some of those just to make this all work. So if you know this musical at all, or even have a recording or have heard it somewhere along the way, you will see that Mark preserved really the basic integrity of this particular project, and a lot of this will sound very familiar. Same keys, same key changes. If it's in 12/8, like we will have on the beginning of Because He Lives, and then goes to 4/4 later on, Mark employs that into his piano arrangement. So we'll do a little bit of Because He Lives and then Alleluia, which nobody had ever heard of Alleluia until this particular musical came out in 1973. So Because He Lives, which has become, probably a staple in many of our churches somewhere along the way. It's in many hymnals. So anyhow, if you know this musical at all, you'll recognize some of the approaches that Mark takes here. Orchestrations, basically, Mark has pulled over, if any of you can remember any of those original recordings, and a little bit of Alleluia. there are some Gaither classics which really were presented and initially kind of premiered in this particular collection. Some that have become standards in many of our settings. You know, Get All Excited, Something Beautiful, King of Kings, Lord of Lords, Let's Just Praise the Lord, The Longer I Serve Him. They're all included in here. So anyhow, that is that collection. Larry Shackley. Has Larry been here? I don't know if Larry has. Okay. Larry's a great friend. Good, just a fine pianist. In fact, I'm a little intimidated when I get in rooms with him and Hayes and some of those guys. But he has done, it's kind of an interesting collection. I mean, Larry's done so many piano books over the years. Probably all of you have some of his collections, and if you haven't, you want to take a look at his. He's my one friend who's been on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire and Jeopardy. Yeah, he's this trivia guy. I mean, his mind is a steel trap, and he just reads all the time, and he picks up all these things. And I thought I was good friends with him, but I never got any of the proceeds from what his winnings were on the show. I cannot understand it. I've complained about that to him multiple times, but he's a gifted pianist, a gifted writer, arranger, and what he has done in this particular collection, Glorious Hymns of the Reformation Era for solo piano. So the things that might have been used during Calvin and Luther and some of the other great reformers, those are some of the hymn tunes that he has included in here. So we'll look at a couple here. The first one is going to be a little, what he calls bouncy Baroque. And I doubt you've ever seen that anywhere else. But Larry includes it here, a setting of Now Thank We All Our God. So let's look at a little bit of that. He starts out with this bouncy Baroque, but then he goes to a much more legato section in the middle. The challenge I learned with this thing is, boy, you don't want to get carried away with the tempo or you will be in trouble. Style and idea, the bouncy Baroque there when he gets later on in the piece, after that legato and kind of rich harmonic section in the middle. And I'd say Larry is fluent in a lot of musical styles, and that's reflected in this book. You'll see some fairly rich, even some slightly leaning towards some jazz in a little bit of what he does. There's a setting, a little bit of "O Sacred Head Now Wounded." This is really a lovely setting, I think. It's really got some, again, some rich harmonies and melody happening low, while you got the ongoing harmonic outline happening in upper voices. Nice addition for your Lent or Holy Week services. Faye Lopez, do you know that name? Anybody? Faye was on the faculty at Bob Jones University for a number of years. She's a delightful lady. She now lives here in Ohio somewhere, I think in the Cincinnati areas. She's retired from that position, but on the piano faculty, fine pianist and a fine musician. She's done a number of choral things as well over the years. But this particular piece, collection, Gentle and Lowly, subtitled Songs from the Heart of Jesus, and it's based on a number of hymn tunes that you will recognize as you look at that list. And they focus on the gentle and the humble heart of Jesus. That's kind of what the theme, the overriding theme of the text that she selected. And this is not a challenging or difficult book. It's one that is readily accessible for you or for students, for somebody who might say, you know, we've all had this, where the person who is scheduled to do offertory that morning calls and says, I won't be there. You know, the kid is sick, or I'm sick, or something like that. And so at the last minute, you're reaching out and grabbing somebody, or more than likely pinch hitting yourself at the last minute. So a couple of these that we'll look at. I Will Arise and Go to Jesus. Even though they're accessible and not terribly difficult, they are fresh harmonically and really a nice kind of interpretation, in my opinion, of these particular hymns. So the first one we'll look at is I Will Arise and Go to Jesus. we'll just stay in the same key and go to "Oh, the deep, deep love of Jesus." You do these as a medley. Especially some of your teachers, I know, many of you are probably, if you've got some students that are looking for an opportunity to play in church, that could be, I think, a viable consideration. Because Faye was a teacher in piano for so many years, she knows how to do that and do it well.